Okay, so today we're checking out the Ampero Stomp, and this is a device that's on loan to me from a friend of mine, so I'm not planning on ditching my Quad Cortex anytime soon. But he loaned it to me for a couple weeks, and I figured it'd be fun to play around with it and kind of learn more about it. I will compare this to the Quad Cortex kind of as we go along, not because that they're necessarily in the same price point. I think the Quad Cortex is about 3 times or more the cost. But since the Quad Cortex is kind of the model I'm most familiar with, it only makes sense for me to kind of compare it as we go along. I'll try not to do that too much. So as you can see here, the Stomp is about the same size as an HX Stomp from line 6. You've got a nice bright LED screen up here. You've got all the inputs, outputs. You've got MIDI in and out. You've got USB. You've got stereo in. You've got stereo out. You've got a couple expression pedals. You've got effects loop in and out, headphone jack, all the stuff that you need. It's the layout. You've got a volume knob. This is kind of for navigating menus. These 3 knobs allow you to control whatever settings are here in these bottom 3 blocks. And you have your 3 kind of selector switches down here. You can either run in preset mode. So you can see I'm in bank 42 and there's 3 presets in each bank. Or you can go into stomp mode, which allows you to turn on and turn off specific blocks within the preset. So if we hit edit, we go into kind of our edit mode here, which is pretty straightforward and pretty user-friendly. It's easy to jump in and kind of move around on this. There's different, these little 3 blocks up here allows you to choose the layout you want. Right now I'm running in parallel, which is, you can see is, these 2 lines are running completely separate from each other. You can run in serial, so they just run together. Or you can do different splits. I haven't gotten too far into this kind of parallel processing on this yet. I'll get into that a little later. The devices, it's very easy to choose here. So you bring this up. Sometimes your edit menu's down. You have to turn it on. You can scroll through all your settings for the amp. If you want to change it, you click the name, and then you can scroll and choose all these different devices. So you can see this preset we have here. I'm running a Soldano 100 model into a 4x12. I've got a dual delay running, and I've got a reverb. So, I mean, it sounds like this. So it sounds pretty good. So let's put it into stomp mode so I can turn things on and off. So let's get into a couple of things I found difficult kind of getting started with the Ampero. One of the things I found with devices like the Quad Cortex, and I even played around with a Fractal FM3 recently, you can kind of jump in and get things to sound good right away. I did not have that same experience with the Ampero, especially with kind of driven amps. I would jump in and they were not sounding good. And what it turned out to be was there was kind of too much kind of high-end fizz on a lot of the drive. And I think there was a couple things there. There was a couple ways to fix it, I guess is a way to say. One is, whenever you add a cab to a preset, it always defaults the mic position to be center. So I don't know about you, but if I'm going to mic a guitar cab, I typically don't start by putting the mic exactly center on the cap of the cone. So that's one thing to do is to kind of move that over a little bit. The other thing I found is that I had to put on a high cut, and a pretty aggressive high cut, to kind of tame the treble. So if you don't, you get a lot of fizz. So let's do this. So this is, again, our Soldano amp. So if we go back and let's turn the high cut off, and we put the center position, by default, when you add the cab, it would sound like this. I don't know about you, but that's not kind of my favorite drive sound. It's real fizzy on the top end. It's like, I just did not like it at all. And I was surprised when I first jumped in, like, this sounds horrible. And as I poked around into it, I kind of discovered, where the mic position was, and also this idea of high cut. So I'm going to do this. I'm just going to switch back like this. But when you get the settings right, you can get a nice tone. And then we can hit that with in this case, I'm using a Zen drive on the front. adds some nice extra grit to it. And this brings me to another thing that I found difficult to get used to on the Ampero. I found that in general, when I was adding drive pedals or compressors and things up front in front of the amp, it was not behaving the way I expected in terms of the volume of the overall preset. And what I found is that unity for some of these blocks is not at 50% or 12 o'clock as you would normally see them. You can see here, I've got this one set at 35. The compressor I actually set at 28. These are set basically at unity, maybe even pushing a little bit. So it's not like you would typically see like the Quad Cortex would do or in real life where that 12 o'clock 50% is unity. And if you push it a little more, it's kind of you're pushing the front of the amp. The unity here seems to be much lower. And so it's just different. And as I'm building the presets, I'm finding it difficult to manage the overall volume of the preset because I'll add in a new block and the volume will jump way up. And it's just really unpredictable. It's not behaving the way it would in the real world, and it's not behaving the way that I expect. So it's not that it doesn't work, it's just, it takes a while to get used to. And I feel like I spend a lot more time managing the levels than I do in the Quad Cortex. So just keep that in mind. But you can get a nice tone. So here, if I put a compressor into the Zen Drive, into the Soldano, you get a nice kind of thick lead tone. So it works out nice, and I like it, but it just took a while to get there. The other preset I've been playing around with is this ODS clean one, which it's a Dumble clean, and I've got pedals in front of it, I've got a compressor, and then a Prince of Drive, which I'm assuming is a Prince of Tone, which sounds really good. So if I turn on the compressor in front of the clean, it's kind of nice. It's got a nice kind of sparkle to it. And then if we kick it with the Prince of Tone. So first impressions, there's some nice tones here. It takes a while to get in and understand the intricacies of this and get the sounds that you want out of it. I'm still working on that. So I haven't started playing around with any of the parallel processing and with multiple amps or anything like that. I'll get into that. I'll probably make a couple more videos on this as I get to know it. So overall, there's a lot here. There's tons of reverbs and delays to play with and overdrives and amps, and you can load in your own IRs. And so there's a lot of capability here. Part of me wishes that it would do less and do what it does better, but I think if you're looking for something a little bit different than, say, getting an HX Stomp, I think this could be a good alternative. I don't know that it's as good as an HX Stomp, but it's also, I think, a little less expensive. But like I said, I'm going to continue to get to know it over the next few weeks, and I'll probably make another video or two. If there's any specific questions you have on this and you want me to kind of, hey, can you check this out or check that out, I'm happy to do it and post a video on it. Just let me know in the comments below. I hope you found this interesting, and thanks for watching. Bye.